Welcome back, Airsoft Academics. In today's episode, we'll be discussing how high-cap magazines work, what are some of the common things that break, and then we'll finish up with some common questions about them. Now, to understand how it works, we're going to need to disassemble it. Some designs will either have a clip that holds it in that you'll need to push in, and or it'll have a spring and or a screw that holds in this plate. So you'll need to first off find any fasteners. Your magazine could also use pins. There are different designs, so be mindful of what fastener that your magazine uses. So the first thing we got to take off is this little guy here. Now this is a good point to kind of check yourself, see if there's ammo in the magazine, and maybe slow your roll a little bit before you end up with a mess that you are going to seriously regret. And make sure there's no tension on the spring by releasing whatever ammo is inside of the ready tube. Once we've done that, it'll be a little calmer to disassemble. The top is immediately released itself, so this should be fairly straightforward for this design. This is a G&G magazine, for anyone wondering. Find all the screws that are holding it together. In this case, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I want to make sure this little pin is sticking out and engaging on one of the teeth, and that all of the teeth look like they're there and in good condition. Got that off. Don't want to lose that. And now it starts to come apart. Once you open this door, you can load some ammo into the reservoir, and then it makes its way down here. This gear here houses a tape spring, and it's hooked up to that main gear that we use for winding. As you wind it, it uses that pin for anti-reversal to allow the tension to keep building without it spinning backwards. This gear on the middle has these little teeth, and the gaps between them are where the BBs get picked up and sent around. This stopper here prevents BBs from leaving the ready tube until it's loaded into a gun and it's pushed out of the way. On this side, G&G's done something interesting. Not only do they have a weight that spins around as the magazine is operating, it also has these little bumps that interact with the BBs towards the bottom and allows them to more freely and easily move down. Systems like this, while they do add a bit of complexity, can allow for more consistent feeding. So now that we know how it works, what are the common things that break? Earlier we mentioned the anti-reversal pin needs to be sticking out through this hole, wrapped around this little guide pole, going through this guider, and then locked through on the other side through the appropriate hole. There should be a hole for the spring on both sides. You'll notice that the spring has an L arm and a bent L arm. The bent one is the one that usually goes through the window. Make sure you've got a nice clean 90-degree angle and then it doesn't seem like it's soft. Don't press on it, but just give it a little tap. Make sure it still seems like it's sturdy. Check all the gears you can to make sure that they're operating smoothly, cleanly, and that all the teeth are in place. With this main pickup gear, you need to make sure that every single one of the teeth on the gears are in good condition. But the most important teeth that we need to be looking at are these big ones that stick out and actually grab the BBs. If we're missing any one of them or the tops are chipped off, that can severely impact your performance. With this tape spring, you want to make sure it's anchored nice and firmly down in one of these sectors. We need to make sure that these two arms on the tape spring are securely fastened through the grooves on the winding gear. At this point, you should have an idea of what's wrong once you've had a look at all the parts. So let's reassemble this. The winding gear goes in the half with the window for the anti-reversal. Set this on here, and we just want to line up those arms like we said before. There we go. You shouldn't have to force it. You can test by being an anti-reversal system yourself and holding the gear while you wind it. Release the tension, and it should spin forward. Once we're confident the tape spring is seated, we can then put the cover back on. Okay, let's start attaching anything else that fell off during the process. We want to make sure that the handle for the door is towards the front of the magazine. There's a metal threaded section that needs to go on the bottom. That's how it threads into this first screw we took out. All right, now the fun part, the anti-reversal. If you use one of these maneuvers, it can work pretty well. By holding the roller, you can guide the spring around the post and get the anti-reversal into position. Oh, shit. Now on this side, once it's through, you should be able to see that it very easily contacts and clicks onto the next position. Now this is where things start to get a little tricky. Keep something holding this down, and then if you see this hole here, that hole is where the exposed spring needs to go into. So to guide it there, you can use a screwdriver or whatever you'd like until eventually it clicks into place. Just be gentle and patient. Try to square things up the best you can. Make sure it doesn't look like anything's going to be in the way. And just don't force anything. Done correctly, everything should just slot into place. So while we're putting this back together, let's answer some common questions. Do you need to lubricate the tape spring? Well, as you might have seen, G&G believes the answer to this question is yes. Having lubricant so close to the ammo in your gun can definitely cause deviations, and I like to try to keep that to a minimum. It is going to come down to user preference, and it can help the magazine operate well. Now, fortunately, you can't test the magazines until they have ammo in them because it relies on the back pressure from the BBs in the ready tube. All right, everything seems secure. Let's give it a quick test. Another question that people ask is what causes feeding issues? Well, if I'm perfectly honest, that's a massive can of worms and it depends on a lot of factors. But if we're only talking about magazines, then there's only a few things we need to worry about. Do we have enough spring tension to push the BBs up? So, i.e. have we wound it enough? Is the tape spring strong enough? The second thing that can cause it is that pickup gear that we discussed. If any of the teeth are missing or it's not engaging properly, then that's obviously going to cause some feeding issues too. And if the stopper isn't moving out of the way, then you just plain up won't get BBs into your gun. Let's see if it worked. Start winding until we start seeing BBs into the ready tube. And there they are. At this point, the magazine doesn't actually have enough pressure to feed, so you have to keep winding it more. How many times can you wind a magazine? Well, every magazine has a different tolerance, as well as different systems in place to let you know when you've reached max wind. Some of them start to click audibly, some of them become very tense, some of them don't want to move at all. But usually I try not to wind mine over 100 times. Load it in. Oh, seems we're feeding. Well, we hope today's video was of use to you. Now for next week's lesson, we'll be getting back into CQB tactics. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out. And if you'd like to learn how to better maintain your weapons, then make sure you check out this video here. Thanks so much for watching. Class is dismissed. Syncing audio 1, 2, 3. That was sultry. Maybe I should do all the videos like that. And in today's episode... No, I can't keep... I'm gonna kill my voice if I do that.